love words. Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Hi through the screen. Lori, Scott, Chris, and Elizabeth. I've got a number of Sangha members home with a cold, I understand, and Chris is one of them. It's amazing, actually. We had a big gathering this last weekend, 35 of us living close together for 3 days, and I just realized we forgot to take a moment at the end to celebrate. We were celebrating a lot of things, but one of the things we could have celebrated was COVID-free, as far as we knew. Huh? Yay. It's always going to be around, but it's nice that it doesn't dominate quite as much, huh? Oops, wrong one. It's probably just a matter of time before I start reading like a prior talk. I wonder if I would notice or you would notice. Here's a poem from Alberto Rios. Something is always broken. Nothing is perfect longer than a day. Every roof has a broken tile, every mouth a chipped tooth. Something is always broken. But the world endures the break. The broken twig is how we follow the trail. The broken promise is the one we remember. Something changed is pushed out of the door. Sad perhaps, but ready, too ready for the world. Something is always broken, something is always fixed. Something is always broken, nothing is perfect longer than a day. Every roof has a broken tile, every mouth a chipped tooth. Something is always broken, but the world endures the break. The broken twig is how we follow the trail. The broken promise is the one that we remember. Something changed is pushed out the door, sad perhaps, but ready, too ready for the world. Something is always broken. Something is always fixed. So sometimes I feel a little embarrassed. I don't often get around to listening to other people's talks, you know. And I suppose with YouTube, you could spend pretty much 24 hours a day listening to Dharma talks if you wanted to. But I did stumble across this one, so I wanted to share with you. Short talk by Hogan Bays. Hogan Roshi, husband of Chosen Bays, is co-abbot of Great Vow Zen Monastery in Oregon, which is a neat place if you ever want to check out a Western Zen monastery. It's a bit west of Portland, a little town called Clatskanie. It was originally an elementary school, which is kind of cool. Now it's a school for baby Buddhas. Anyway, here's what Hogan said this last weekend. Thanks everyone for being here. The purpose of Dharma is to help people find meaning in their life and reduce suffering. So when we're talking about any topic, that's the intention. To find meaning in our lives and reduce suffering. One of the especially important parts is that we have to have a big view. A few days ago, we had a national election. As you know, we cast our votes for the candidate we hoped would have the best effect on our lives, just as everyone else did. Some people were elated with the outcome, while others were devastated. Some people's fears were enormously relieved, and most of the country's fears were greatly... Wait, I think I must have written this down wrong. Some people's fears were enormously increased, and many people's fears were greatly eased. And some were really stoked. Some people are ready to flee the U.S. Others invested more money in the stock market, which surged. Many people, looking at all the candidates' past actions, believe the world is going to become a much more hostile, less friendly, and more punitive place. Others feel that now there's hope for stability and economic progress. This is all Hogan. If the election had gone differently, some people would have been ready for a civil war, while others would be looking forward to a new era of inclusivity and peace. So as practitioners, we are interested in the nature of truth and to aspire to peace, wisdom, loving kindness, the relief of suffering, and liberation. So how do we meet these circumstances? How do we respond to a situation like this election? I'm going to propose that first we take a big view. There are two sides and many sides to everything. So let's look at it from 4 different perspectives: the personal, the rational, the responsive, and the benefit of others. From a personal perspective, it's important to understand that fear is suffering, anxiety is suffering, and anger is suffering. The more afraid we are, the angrier we become, the more fearful we are, the more we suffer. And this creates a cycle where the more we suffer, the more we react negatively to our friends, families, neighbors, jobs, relationships, strangers. Anger, fear, anxiety, and suffering do not lead to clarity. They do not lead to calmness or effective action. Instead, they lead to suspicion, fear, and righteousness. The first place to always begin is not with anger, fear, suspicion, hate, or doubt, but to ask ourselves, how do I bring myself into a state of calmness and clarity at this moment? We can breathe deeply, sit down, stop our minds from spinning endlessly. Fear is always about the future. It's about somewhere else, so we bring ourselves back to what is real right here, right now. In this moment, what is there to be afraid of? If we look right here, right now, we see nice people behaving themselves very pleasantly, sitting in harmony. So like right here, right now. By relaxing on the out-breath, we bring our nervous systems into equanimity, calming down, and dropping the fear of possible futures. So that was what he called the personal perspective. The second principle is to have an intelligent understanding of what's going on. This doesn't mean understanding the media's narrative, which typically projects a sensational story. The media wants things exciting to keep our attention. So we have to derive our understanding from reality, not from stories. One reality we can all observe is that we do not know the future. If you think you know the future, let me know. We can go to Las Vegas and resolve all of our financial problems. The truth is, we think we can predict outcomes. We think our ideas of the future are reasonable. But the further out in time we get, the less accurate our suppositions become. But another way to understand the world is through causation. From here, now, in this room, listening to this talk, an infinite number of causes and conditions had to lead to this moment, and this moment will lead to many more. This includes 30,000 years of history, technological advancements, and countless individual and societal factors. We need to acknowledge the many factors that influence who we are and how we live today. The third principle is to recognize that every life has challenges. That's a given. When we face challenges, we have two basic approaches. We can learn from them and grow wiser, or we can collapse and feel like victims. Each challenge is an opportunity for us to expand our understanding, learn to be more creative, and tap into inner resources we might not have recognized before. The last principle I want to discuss and is to recognize the cyclical nature of existence. How many governments have risen and fallen over the past 30,000 years? A lot. The way the world operates is that things rise and fall, come together and fall apart. And that this isn't inherently good or bad. It just is. By accepting the nature of life, we can choose to surf on the high and the low waves instead of being flooded by them. And now we consider the part around how do we respond. We can only respond with our actions in the present moment. If we want to care for others, it begins with what we can do right now, right here. For example, if we want to help hungry people, we can start with our own hands and intentions in our local community. We can feed people. When faced with a crisis, we should first clarify our minds and understand whether we are going to respond with anger or with peace. It's essential to act with a sense of connection to others, knowing we are all linked. Out of this understanding, we plant the seeds of clarity and create positive change in the world. Finally, we can help others find peace and clarity. This might involve meaningful joint activities, community involvement, offering support, sharing Dharma, organizing events. Regardless of the challenges we face, we can keep these four principles in mind. Seek calmness and clarity, understand the situation intelligently, function skillfully according to our values, and help others. May we turn everything into wisdom and kindness. May it be so. It's a nice offering there from Hogan, huh? But thinking about this and talking to people, I appreciate these wise words, but maybe like me, you notice that there's something missing here. Which is, we can't really understand. That big situations bring forward the difficult practice of not knowing. And that while there's freedom in that, we don't know, we really, really don't know what's going to happen. It's very difficult because we are conditioned with minds that want to understand, want to have reasons, want things to be orderly in this universe and in alignment with our values. One of the deep teachings in the Tibetan tradition is to really deeply consider that all people, everyone you meet, all people, want to be happy and don't want to suffer. And then we have a big challenge when we see choices and actions and outcomes that seem like they're going to lead to a lot of unhappiness and a lot of suffering, right? And so it's kind of a koan for us. Somehow, these actions, by ourselves, by others, are always in alignment with these goals. Wanting to be happy, or any other word you want to put in there, secure, stable, not afraid, and be free from suffering. That's why people act how they act. So that's what they hope, right? That's what we hope. The other thing I think is a little bit missing from Hogan's wise words is we need to look more at our own blind spots. The many choices and actions we make that increase suffering, that aren't in alignment with our values. Small ones, mostly maybe, sometimes big ones. who doesn't have things they regret that they could learn from? And it'd be so easy to do a massive amount of othering on whichever side of the political divide you find yourself. Those others don't get it. I get it. But the other thing that I thought about in Hogan's lovely encouragement to take a breath and calm down, which is wise and true, is what about our dear, dear friends and loved ones who have experienced significant trauma? Why would that not be active, Maybe extremely active right now. And it's insulting to tell people triggered by trauma to calm down, isn't it? So it's a very complicated thing. No words can quite say it right, and I don't mean to pick on Hogan, lovely guy. Those were good, wise words. But no words are ever quite right, or quite complete, are they? Something's always left out. And yet our work is to be clear, and to be kind, and to be brave enough to open our mouths even though it's not going to come out quite right, and express our love for this world and each other and everyone in this world. He does talk a little bit about impermanence, but I want to bring that up again because I think it's a great source of comfort for us here. To remind yourself with a lot of strength and a lot of energy, I do not know what's going to happen. Whatever things I imagine are not nuts, they're based on something, based on our understanding of the world, based on past observations, always a little distorted by our opinions and views and biases. But our predictions of the future are not dumb. But it's not going to happen that way. We know this for a fact. Something will happen, but not exactly that, because how could it be exactly that? That's only a thought you're having now, an imagination of the future. As we were finishing service tonight, I had a thought I never had a thought before. I've always appreciated service. I've never been I know sometimes these forms seem a little weird, but I've never really felt that way for whatever reason. I don't know why. But as we were doing service, I had this feeling of great comfort, deeply comforting to do this practice together, to do service together. Healing, embodied, connected. I'm just making up reasons why. I don't really know why. But I just felt so comforted, a warm blanket, So let's see what are the ways that you can find that are healthy comfort, connected comfort. And we go on, we go on together. We keep practicing, we keep wondering. We try to understand, and at the same time that we try to understand, we know, we see that we can never really understand. And we do this practice, right, of being able to hold both sides, to make effort to understand, even as we know we can't really understand. I don't even understand myself and my motivations, do you? So somebody thinks they could understand the motivations of 90 million people? But I want to understand, and I'll keep studying. One of my personal goals, I hope I pull this off, is just this little side note for me personally, but you would probably have your own thoughts. Robert Reich, who was the labor secretary under Clinton, I think. He's an economics professor, politically involved, and he has an online video economics course where he says he can really help you unpack the sequence of events, policy decisions, world economic issues, and all of it makes sense, he says, if you study it. that have led to this unbelievable disparity in income inequality in the world and in our country, that has left so many people behind. I'd like to understand better. How did that happen? I know, I have some imaginings and some ideas, but I'd like to understand better. So it's just one goal I have for understanding. And I'd need to set aside 10, 20 hours to actually do that, So I'm going to try. Okay. Hold me to it. How do we get to be where we are, There's stuff we can all learn. And it's going to take more than just scanning the headlines, right, to learn these things. It's going to take an investment to understand our world a little better, this world we've created with each other. So anyway, I'd rather talk about the 12th century and what Dogen was up to. I figured we better talk about this too, huh? One thing Dogen brought to us, which we got to really enjoy on Sunday and are continuing to enjoy today, and it's relevant to the bigger topic here, is that we have a ritual path around living well, living wisely, living with love. And you don't have to do this particular set of things with, you can still live exactly the same way. But we've inherited this really beautiful system of studying the precepts, studying the Zen ethical guidelines, and really trying to understand them through our lives and in our lives, not an academic study, a personal study. And we do that for at least a year, maybe many years, maybe every year for the rest of our lives. And then for some people, it's right to do like a physical representation of that vision. To make and sew a special garment. A bunch of people are wearing them. It looks like a little bib. Funnily, oftentimes people wear like dark subdued clothing under the dark subdued colored bib. You can't even see it anyway, but it's there, And so on Sunday, 6 people in the Sangha completed that process. It takes the better part of a year or longer. And it's just beautiful. And in that process, it's a receive it from the teacher thing. So it sort of also enacts the central myth of Zen, which is generations sharing always with the next generation, passing it on, passing it on, passing it on. This unbroken continuity of wisdom and practice and understanding. So I had the great pleasure of giving a few people these special garments called rakasu. And Chris, who's home with a cold, she's right here, got to do that with several people too. And as we did that, we gave the people new names. Audacious. Naming somebody. Names of recognition and names of encouragement. And the other thing you might not know about Zen is into paperwork. The Zen adepts of China, when this was really all sort of developed and elaborated, many of them were from the literary classes, the upper classes of China. So I'm afraid we did inherit a bit of a class-based system. We're trying to be more inclusive now. And the Chinese basically invented writing, thousands of years before anybody else, so they're kind of proud of it, It's their thing. And so special occasion deserves special writing. And because they write with a brush, it's also a form of art. All writing is, but it's more obvious with a brush. So partly with a brush and partly with, I think some Sharpies were involved too. We gave the new baby Buddhas documents to certify that they're a part of this warm hand lineage of love and understanding going back to Buddha and before. So part of why I wanted to tell you about all this is to reassure you that you don't have to do it. One is not less than or more than, greater than, for having done this process. It's just one choice, one path of practice. And the great thing about what we are up to here is there are many, many ways. Dogen himself said there are many minds as there are persons, and there are as many ways to do this practice as there are minds. So each of us has our own trajectory. And so if doing all this doesn't ever feel right for you, it doesn't mean you're a failure or something like that. Maybe you're just being wise and recognizing where you have resonance and where you don't. But that kind of stuff can really catch us up, so I wanted to bring that up. In my life, a similar thing is my father and half my relatives, my father, my uncle, my niece, my stepfather, all have PhDs in the hard sciences. Really smart people. And I was the oldest son. And I don't know if anyone ever said this out loud, but it was pretty clear what I was supposed to do. And, I did an undergraduate degree, so, I got a little street cred for that. But then I went off and, got a job in the mountains and preschool and nature and painting houses. One time I worked for a house moving company. That was really interesting, moving houses. And all through my 20s, I figured one of these days I was going to get around to applying for graduate school so I could be a physicist. It seemed like it was just one morning I think, oh yeah, now's the day. Yeah, MIT maybe. Now Caltech, I think it's Tuesday. But obviously I never did. And I felt guilty about it, I felt like I let our side down, I didn't feel particularly shamed by anybody. I knew my father was content if I'm happy. He's always been very clear about that. There was nobody telling me, what's wrong with you? You didn't go to grad school? Sometimes I find that, people who have gone to grad school, I know the things I've noticed is they always say, well, undergrad I went here. So I recognize that's coded language for saying I went to grad school. So I started saying that, I noticed, after a while. If I had an opportunity to talk about, somehow college was involved. Undergrad I went to UC Santa Cruz. There was no grad, but... And then one day, I was doing a mindfulness class for a group of doctors. Many of these people had MDs and PhDs. Can you believe that shit, Caesar. Of course, in our usual way, we see these really smart people, but these are people who are really good at going to school, is what it comes down to, and really determined about going to school. Or maybe didn't know any better, Maybe they couldn't have made it working for the Van Dusen house moving company. Probably not, Anyway, so I'm working with this group of doctors, and I'm feeling a little bit inadequate for my lack of pedigree. And one of them gave me a beautiful teaching. So I hope someone gives you a teaching like this sometime. She says to me, Tim, I love what you offer us. It's exactly what we need. You offer us this way to come home to ourselves, to feel ourselves again, and you give us just enough to do it, and then you get out of the way and let us do it. I'm not going to ask you to take out my appendix, she says. But you're just what's needed here. And I realized, and so there I was actually at a medical school, high academy, So I'm like, oh, I got my PhD somewhere else. So if you never do the Rakusu thing, I hope so you'll remember, or someone will remind you, that you did exactly the right thing with what you chose to do. Because these are beautiful practices, but like all things, they can divide us, right? And for goodness sakes, there's enough ways that we're getting divided. So I just wanted to express the hope that our ritual empowerments and steps and stages, such as they are, always serve to heal and unify and never to divide. And we remind ourselves and remind each other when we do these ritual steps that this doesn't mean you're better than somebody. It's the opposite, you know. It means you're willing to be humble and put your imperfect self out there as an example of Buddha. As embarrassing as that is, you know. So, this is my part two from the This is my part two of the congratulations on Sunday. And you can't return it. So that's what I wanted to say tonight, I guess. I hope you feel comforted by being together. Anybody want to add anything or share anything for the greater good? Okay. So actually, that's really good. Another thing we learn in Zen is I'm not modeling that very well, but sometimes it's better not to speak, huh? Enough words already. May our intention equally extend to every being and place with the true merit of Buddha's way. Beings are numberless, I vow to save them. Delusions are impossible, I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless, I vow to enter them. Buddha's way is unsurpassable,